Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and there's a new article out today titled Why 2020 Will Bring Record Highs for Cryptocurrencies. Now, of course, this is an XRP-centric channel, so, not surprising to you, I'm sure, I'll be coming at this from the angle of an XRP community member, from the angle of an XRP holder who continues to purchase XRP on a regular basis, while not offering financial advice, because to be clear, do not have a financial background. I'm just a member of the community who likes to share opinions and talk about this stuff. I just have fun with it. It's my most favoriteest hobby ever, after all. So that's really all I'm actually going to go through in this video. There's just a lot to say about it, but excuse me. Before I go any further, if you would please ever so delicately tap that like button, and also, if you just so happen to be a fan of Ripple and XRP, go ahead, treat yourself, girl, by subscribing to the Moon Lambo channel. It's a pretty gosh darn good idea. So, here we go. You know, there's a couple things. You know what I want to start with is right here. So, big picture. If you think about 2020, what's actually going to drive price? Well, a lot of different people with a whole ton of different opinions. You know what it always goes back to for me as a member of the XRP community who believes very wholeheartedly that utility matters and will win the day. That's my entire investment thesis after all. I say it probably annoyingly frequently on this channel. I'm sorry if it's annoying, but I have to say it. I have to explain over and over again. It's that important to me. Like why I'm happy to be here, why I'm happy to continue to put money into XRP. And so again, for me, it always comes back to utility. And so the question for me always is, at what point is there going to be a broad recognition of actual utility of particular cryptocurrencies, specifically XRP, because that's the one that I'm genuinely interested in, because it's the only one being used in the commercial production of anything, damn it. And so, to me, that kind of matters. So when's there going to be a broader recognition of this, and what's that going to do to price ultimately? Well, I don't know that there's just going to be something overnight that's going to just make people wake up and see it. I think that there are things that can happen. Like there can always be a catalyst to get more people into a space. There can all be all sorts of news. There can be a frenzy like we saw in 2017, which got all sorts of new people in the world of crypto, including yours truly, Moon Lambo. That frenzy which brought in a ton of people. I was one of the bazillions of people that came in, and I stuck around though, even after a ton of them left after the price flatlined and many cryptos plummeted 80 to 90% because they shouldn't have been valued where they were anyway. But there are always some that stick around. And so what's the next thing that's going to be people in? Well, look, utility is going to matter. Like in terms of when XRP is really decoupled, when it's really living on its own, it's going to come down to when XRP is no longer responding primarily to the price action of Bitcoin. And I don't necessarily know that that's going to be in 2020. That would be nice, but I also am not going to pretend to know when that's going to happen. I just know conceptually that's what's going to matter. And so what's going to do that? Well, that's why I pulled up the piece that's on your screen right now. And this is from Main Be Crypto. And I talked about this a little bit in the past, but this one was titled, and this is from a couple weeks ago, Could Binance and Bittrex be facilitating new XRP on-demand liquidity corridors? Crypto Twitter speculates. And so there was a lot of speculation about this Australian corridor, which I have talked about, so I'm not just going to regurgitate what I already covered as it pertains to this piece, but I did want to say conceptually this still absolutely matters. You're talking about real-world utility, and as demand increases, as corridors are built out, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to result in people fundamentally changing the way that they're buying and selling XRP. Because right now it's just in reaction to Bitcoin, but I'm telling you, the more actual usage, the more confidence individuals are going to have. Now, I'm one of the early people, and maybe you are too, where you are already letting utility be the driving force in whether you're buying and selling. And I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not telling you to buy or sell because I have no financial background here, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's many of you that are listening here. So my point is, there are some of us that are doing this. Like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it entirely based on utility. If I didn't see utility, I would have no interest in gambling my money away in cryptocurrencies right now, because that's what it would seem more so like to me. Like it would seem too much like that, just gambling, and I don't know that I'd be interested. But utility does actually matter here. And so I believe that as you see that businesses need XRP in order to conduct their business models, you'll see more people like me and perhaps you if you fit the what I just described there, and those types of people aren't just gonna go away, because you know what fundamentally happens is XRP can become a genuine store of value for the long term, specifically for the long term, and this is the type of thing that will instill confidence in something like that. And so, as all of this is built out, and again, I don't know necessarily that it's going to come next year, but this is the thing that will matter most as it pertains to XRP price. But if you're looking specifically at 2020, with this piece again, why 2020 will bring record highs for cryptocurrencies, let me cover just a little bit of this article here. All right. Total crypto market capitalization is currently 50% higher than it was this time last year. However, that is largely Bitcoin's doing. Most of the altcoins are actually trading lower than they were at the beginning of 2019, and the year will be one to forget for many of them. And mind you, in terms of cycles, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path, but that's happened, but many believe that we're geared up for an alt cycle, which hasn't happened in 2019 yet. If that happens, then okay, if there's a dud of a year for altcoins in terms of price in 2019, it doesn't necessarily mean anything if you're just arbitrarily choosing the timeline, but I won't get into it beyond that. I just wanted to say it, felt I had to. Anyway, there are several factors that could drive a revival of new highs in 2020, though. Economic concerns are growing, and central banks are taking more extreme measures to avoid recession. Negative interest rates and quantitative easing is putting massive pressure on financial markets, and fiat is under threat of devaluation. Several countries have already suffered massive hyperinflation, and people have turned to cryptocurrencies as a safe haven. And we'll see, we'll just have to see if that happens in mass. But quantitative easing, when you hear that, just think government's printing money. That's what it is. Anyway, with a distortion in the value of assets, investors may turn to riskier ones such as Bitcoin. Additionally, stocks and real estate are at all-time highs while global debt is skyrocketing. The millennial generation will not want to get burnt, so they may also turn to cryptocurrencies as observed by industry analysts. And so here's a tweet that was highlighted. It's at Crypto Wilson. So check this out. Nearly half of millennials say they are likely to buy Bitcoin. Why? Stocks and real estate are at all-time highs and interest rates are at all-time lows. There's $250 trillion in global debt that the last generation dined and dashed on. Bitcoin is this generation's way to get ahead. And so I fully recognize the problem cited within that tweet. I don't know that necessarily Bitcoin specifically is the way to get ahead, but cryptocurrencies can certainly potentially help. But of course, presumably they're thinking about Bitcoin in place of fiat currencies, and we're just nowhere near that, frankly. But so look, in 20, it depends to what degree is 2020 going to be disastrous in other asset classes. Like, that's kind of what they're getting at here, right? Isn't it fundamentally what they're talking about here? And if so, is cryptocurrency, is that asset class truly a hedge against this type of turmoil? Maybe. I've seen evidence for and against that a little bit here and there, and nothing that seems to have staying power. And it's hard to look back and say, well, let's take a historical look. Well, there's a decade of history. That's it. So you can only draw so many freaking conclusions here in the first place, though. But, look, I doubt that altcoins are going to get too much lower unless Bitcoin actually does crater as some are predicting. I'll talk about this more in a different video, but if Bitcoin actually cratered to the $5,000 to $4,000 level, something like that, then I could see that. But outside of that, perhaps we've seen the close to as low as everything else, including XRP, will get. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not pretending to know. I'm just postulating concepts here, ideas. And that certainly may be the case. But if that is indeed the case, then in 2020, presumably, if there's only one other direction to go, if Bitcoin really isn't going to tank any lower, it could be time for XRP to finally go up. It could actually finally indeed be time. I don't know, but it's fun to think through. I'm just telling you, because I believe in the concept of an alt cycle, even if it's not going to look the same as 2017, because there's just too much activity going on for some of the top coins, for some of them. And I understand liquidity is not the same as it was even 2 years ago with less of a frenzy. I get that, but there's still something to this all. But if you look even longer, what's more exciting even than just thinking over the short-term calendar of 2020, which makes for a snappy article, and I don't blame them for doing that. I get it. And it is fun to talk about. Consider this too. Why, let me go to I'm sorry, this is the one I wanted to pull up here. Here we go. $68 trillion wealth transfer poised to boost Bitcoin, says crypto asset giant Grayscale. And so, this isn't too old of a story. This is like a couple weeks or so ago. And so, Grayscale, there was their managing director, Michael Sonnenschein, if I'm saying that right, or maybe it's Sun and Sheen, I'm not sure, talks about Bitcoin's potential emergence as a mainstream investment here. Of course, when you hear Bitcoin, really, you might as well just think cryptocurrency, because the asset class is here to stay. As far as I'm concerned, it's never going away, and there are so many reasons for that I'm not going to get to in this video. But take a look at this quote. And this is, again, directly from Michael Sonnenschein at Grayscale. The narrative that's really resonated on Wall Street is around Bitcoin becoming digital gold, or a digital store of value. And this is a conversation that we're having quite often. This generational wealth transfer. There's $68 trillion of wealth that's going to get passed down to millennials over the next 25 years. That's a lot of capital. And whether today it's invested in gold or other kinds of investments, we have to be paying attention to how that capital is going to get redeployed as it gets passed down. So from our perspective, we're really drilling into what that looks like. And we're certainly not saying all of that capital will flow into Bitcoin, but we certainly say that it's going to resonate with a millennial audience. Charles Schwab put out this study last week, and the fifth most held equity holding by their millennial investors is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And that's ahead of Netflix and Disney, companies that millennials were raised on. So we're already getting that empirical data that's showing that's where the puck is going, and investors need to be paying attention to that. And so conceptually, I absolutely agree with this, because I know that the crypto asset class isn't going away. So as long as, for the long haul, XRP continues to experience real-world adoption, actual utility, a certain amount of that money that's going to trade hands in a rather notable generational transfer of wealth, some of that's going to go to XRP. Some of it will. In addition to just the fact that as it becomes more clear the asset class isn't going to go away, you're going to have more money flowing ultimately. Anyway, including money from institutional investors, which are going to parse out the differences between coins in a more meaningful way than other just retail investors. That's what I would fully expect that. I think there's a lot more emotional buying and selling from retail speculators, if you compare that to any sort of institutional buy and sell action. That's what I would say anyway. So that's kind of big picture where I see all of this going. As far as 2020, is it going to be worse than 2019? If I just had to guess for the fun of it, and I do mean just for the fun of it, because I'm not making a prediction, it's going to be better. It's going to be better than 2019. It's just a for fun statement there. I'm not making a prediction, right? And I'm not offering financial advice. But last year, there's a tweet from Bearable Intentions who wrote, "Thanks, Moon Lambo. You keep us entertained through all the FUD and BS. We know from a fundamental standpoint that it's a matter of when, not if." And so I wanted to give you a shout out to Bearable Intentions on Twitter. Very kind of you to say, and thanks for sharing your perspective. I appreciate that. And I think I'll wrap up things right there. But I would love to hear what you all think in terms of what's in store for 2020. Seriously, feel free to drop a comment below. I love hearing from everybody. And what do you think big picture, even beyond that? But that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!